the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and Redeemer. Amen. Now he is God, not of the dead, but of the living. For to him all of them are alive. It's Jesus' last line in the gospel lesson, a very strange gospel lesson in my opinion. And I want to tell two stories about myself that illustrate how we live or don't fully live in to what that last line is saying. Now he is God, not of the dead, but of the living. For to him all of them are alive. Many of you know that a year and a half ago, I was a chaplain intern down at Overlook Hospital. And I worried how I would face some of the challenges. What I found was that my normal duties, which was going room to room visiting people, became quite routine. The visits were polite. I think the people appreciated the time I spent with them, the spiritual presence, and the prayers. Some of them were even profound. But then there were the times when the pager went off, and you know there was a real emergency. And I'd be called to the emergency room, or the ICUs, or the patient's room. And things were tough at that point. Patients were very critically ill, usually. Hard decisions had to be made. Patients were very sick. There was often chaos in the rooms. Chaos among the families who were distraught, frightened, even angry. And I was surprised to find myself walking there, being very calm, being very centered, not bothered by what I was seeing, not bothered by the chaos. That surprised me. My faith grounded me. My faith grounded me in those times of crisis. Now, I want to tell another situation which may be too much self-disclosure. But 10 days ago, I had a doctor's appointment. I had to see my doctor for just a routine medication check. But, in contrast to my experience in Overlook, from the time I made my appointment to the doctor, I began to get nervous. Would everything be all right? Would they find something terrible? Was I dying? So sitting in that waiting room on that Friday, 9 days ago, I found myself shallow breathing quickly, and I'm not kidding, my palms were sweating. I was a quivering mass of neuroses and anxiety. To the members of our youth group who are present, no, I'm not going to let you videotape my next visit to the doctor. And of course, 10 minutes later, the doctor came in. 2 minutes later, he was out, and I could relax. Those two very different experiences, one being bound by my own fears and anxiety, and the other, at Overlook, being grounded in my understanding of what it means to be a Christian, illustrate what Jesus speaks about in that last line of the gospel. He is God, not of the dead, but of the living. For to him all of them are alive. This gospel lesson is not about marriage. It's not about the unusual practices of ancient Judaism with relation to the status of women in marriage and lineage. It's about resurrection. Resurrection is the giving back of life by God. Resurrection is the affirmation that we are alive in God. Resurrection is foundational to Christianity. Resurrection of Christ is the sign that death does not triumph. God's love ultimately wins. But Jesus does more than talk about resurrection in the future. Jesus talks about resurrection in the present, when he says, to him all are alive. We are sharing in the resurrection today. Let me say that again. We are sharing in the resurrection today. Now, I should say, we're treading on dangerous ground here. We have strayed into theology. Theology is the systematic, the rational study of God. And theology is necessary for the experience of the church. As long as we who are in the Anglican tradition understand that we will never agree on theology, and theology changes over time. But what makes theology dangerous right here on this Sunday morning is that theology makes a terrible sermon. Sermons about how we are to live our lives and to follow the gospel. And that's in that last line. Now he is God, not of the dead, but of the living. For him, all of them are alive. Resurrection isn't about the future. Resurrection begins today. We, as I've said, and I will say again, we are participating in the resurrection. Jesus tells us it has begun in our lives. We are resurrection people. Now, what does it mean to say that we are resurrection people? Being a resurrection person, and you all are here just by your presence. You have begun that journey. But being a resurrection person liberates us to more fully participate in God's mission in the world. It liberates each of us to be the person that God is calling us to be. Yes, it's about death, but it's about a lot more than just death. That's the big one. But I've come to understand that all sorts of freedom flows from the idea of being a resurrection people. Remember that old bumper sticker, "He who dies with the most toys wins"? Well, if we are resurrection people, that bumper sticker has no meaning. If we are resurrection people, we don't have to keep up with the Joneses. There's something more than keeping up with the Joneses. If we are a resurrection people, shame does not need to consume us. If we are resurrection people, our lives do not have to be guided by the expectations laid on us by society. If we are resurrection people, our fears do not have to dominate us. We can be free. As I gave an example of my own experience, we don't do this perfectly. My fears still haunt me. That all may sound good, but how do we live a resurrection life? Living a resurrection life is not like adding one more thing to our daily task to do. Clean the house, go to work, and live a resurrection life. It doesn't work that way. So what? Begin to see yourself as a resurrection person. That the resurrection of Christ is alive in you today. Whether you're 6 or 96. And I must quote our own Val Pettit, look for the little resurrections in your life. And look for the little resurrections in the lives of the people that surround you. That's a start. But then I invite you to dream. I'm serious. I invite you to dream about what it would be like for you to more fully live into being a resurrection person. Dreaming allows us to open up to new possibilities. And you may be surprised. You may be even shocked at the result. But dream what it would be like. And then begin to be a resurrection person. To be more fully a resurrection person. And hold in your heart what Jesus said. Now he is God, not of the dead, but of the living. For to him all of